All right, well, it's 12:03. We'll admit another person here. 12:03, so we'll get things started today. And first off, thank you everybody for joining us. My name is Jordan Wall with the Saskatchewan Association of Recreation Professionals, or SARP, as we refer to ourselves most often. Thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it, especially for those that are in Saskatchewan and celebrating Recreation Professionals Week. Really honored to have you with us here today. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that SARP engages in its work on the lands within Treaties 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10, the traditional territories of the Cree, Dakota, Dene, Lakota, Nakota, and Saulteaux peoples, and the homeland of the Métis. We recognize the ongoing presence of Indigenous peoples and commit to reconciliation through our recreation practices. A couple of quick housekeeping notes for you today. Today's session is being recorded and will be provided to all of our registrants by email afterwards. You can also find it on the SARP website. For anybody who has questions during the session, please feel free to drop those into the chat, and our facilitator will get to those as she best can. As well, if you'd like to actually speak and have some commentary that way, please raise your hand and she'll be able to get to those questions as well. So jumping to today's session, really excited to be working with the Active Living Alliance for Canadians with a Disability. We are joined here today by Taryn Barry, who's a project manager for the Alliance. And so they're doing some great work around a new municipal guide. And really, we brought Taryn here to talk about it a little bit today. It's a bit of a sneak preview about the entire guide, which we released a little later here in the year, and she can give more details on that. Also excited that Taryn will be joining us and SPRA at the Sparks Conference in Regina in October. So we thought this would be a great chance to give a bit of a sneak preview to a really exciting tool that can help municipal leaders and others across the country and specifically within our province. So with that, I'll turn things over to Taryn and let her jump into today's session, and hope you guys enjoy it.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you for having me, everyone. It's really great to be here. I'm pretty excited to talk to you about our municipal guide and represent the Active Living Alliance for Canadians with a Disability. And thank you, Jordan, for the introduction and also being invited by SARP to be here today and work together on this. I'm really looking forward to being at the Sparks Conference as well in October. So this presentation is on, it's called Building Better Access, a how-to guide for inclusive municipal recreation. And it's based on a municipal guide that we have been developing at Active Living Alliance for Canadians with a Disability. I will call it ALACD for the remainder of the presentation. But we've been working on it since early January 2024. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why we made this guide, who it's for, what is in it, and how it can be used, and our next steps on dissemination and making sure that there are tools for leaders in municipalities and in communities to use this guide so that we make recreation more inclusive to persons experiencing disability. So I just want to let you all know that I am coming from Treaty 6 territory in Edmonton, Alberta, home to Métis, First Nations, Cree, and other groups. And I'm just really honored to be on this land and be here with you today. I encourage you to just in the chat, introduce yourself. It would be really nice to just quickly read, where people are coming from and their role, and then it allows people in the group to kind of understand better where you're coming from. It also helps perhaps make some connections across the country or across the province of Saskatchewan. So with that, I'm going to start, and I encourage for you, if you have any questions during the presentation, to put up a hand. We have Chiamaka, we have Abby and Jordan helping with the presentation, and they can keep an eye on the chat. And then also there's opportunity at the end to talk about some things, and you can unmute and also ask questions or add some comments. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of ALACD, who we are. I'm going to give an overview of the project and the rationale, the contributing partners, who's behind all of this. I'm going to talk about how we built or we've created some of the or come up with the evidence and our research process. And then I'll show you some of the results of the municipal guide following how to use it. And then a little bit of a discussion on the way forward with some group discussion if time allows for it and everyone is interested in having a discussion, and then finish off with some questions. And I just see in the group, We've got Aileen, a community consultant, in Silton, Saskatchewan, and then Gina, I think I'm saying your name right, from New Brunswick. That's great. It's good to see other folks from across the country. And then Helen, nice to see you. You're executive director with Lakeland. This is great. Thank you so much for sharing. And a little bit about myself, because I did forget to introduce myself. My name is Taryn Berry, as Jordan did say. I have worked with ALACD for the last year and a half, and I just completed my PhD in sport management. I've worked for several different recreation and sport organizations, so I'm really passionate about making sport and recreation inclusive. And I did play hockey many, many years ago for the university team here in Edmonton at the University of Alberta. And now I just do yoga and walk my dog. So those are my recreational pursuits. Um, so I just wanted to let you know that the Active Living Alliance for Canadians with Disability was established actually in 1989. And it served a long time to encourage people with disabilities to make physical activity, sport, and recreation part of their lives. And the other goal is to help build the capacity of communities and organizations and people like yourselves to make this possible. So our vision at ALACD is that all people with disabilities in Canada can be physically active and experience well-being. And our mission supports communities and organizations to facilitate the participation of people with disabilities in the SPAR sector, so sport, physical activity, and recreation. And we'll do that by having an impact and by facilitating system change, knowledge to action, and then the connection between organizations and communities. And a great thing is that our organization has just recently worked on our next 5-year strategic plan, which will be presented on our website in the next few months. So if you're curious about ALACD some more, we've got some great things coming. Our website has been redeveloped, but there will be a second phase and some new logo and branding as well. So the municipal guide. So this is what I wanted to talk to you about. And I'm pretty excited to talk to you about the municipal guide to promising and best practices for disability inclusion in recreation and physical activity. So a little bit of an overview is the purpose of this resource is to provide how-to practices, so very specific practices for staff to implement disability inclusion in municipal recreation departments. Our target audience primarily is for staff who work as directors of recreation, as well as program directors, coordinators, and managers. But what we are learning is that the guide is actually could be used by community groups, and then obviously persons with disabilities and lived experience could use it as an advocacy tool. So why did we embark on this project to develop a municipal guide? Well, according to the 2022 Canadian Survey on Disability, 27% of Canadians aged 15 years and older have one or more disabilities. In Saskatchewan, it is higher. So it's almost 30% of the population is reported to have a disability, and that was an increase between 2017 and 2022. So what we know is people with disabilities have significantly fewer opportunities than other Canadians to enjoy the benefits of active recreation, and this is due to physical, social, and psychological barriers. We also recognize that municipal governments are in a unique position by having a mandate to provide recreation to all their residents, and that includes those with persons with a disability. The other thing is the municipality is a really great kind of central resource, and they create infrastructure, they have programming for youth and communities. So they serve a large part of the population across the country, whether it's rural, small, medium, or large sized municipality. So we felt like the biggest impact would be by systemically changing how people with disabilities are integrated into sport and recreation through the municipality. So just wanted to let you know who we've been working with on this project. We are working with Canadian Disability Participation Project, so that's CDPP, and they have been our primary partner to as researchers. So they are connected to the Queen's University, And this is where we have been working to develop the research methodology, collect the evidence, and so forth. We are really grateful to our funders, the Federal, Provincial, and Territorial Government Sport, Physical Activity, and Recreation Council, also known as SPARC, and the Physical Activity and Recreation Committee, known as PARC. We also have had financial support from the Government of Canada and Sport Canada in particular. And then finally, we've been working with Canadian Parks and Recreation Association and the provincial and territorial affiliates. So that's why later in October, we are going to be coming to Saskatchewan's the uh, Sparks conference in October. And we're going to go more deep. So this is kind of the first session and workshop. And then in Sparks, we'll go a little deeper into the guide. So we first set out in 2024 to develop a consensus panel, and on the consensus panel is about 15 individuals that represent different size municipalities, people with lived experience, researchers, government and community representatives. And their role has been to provide direction and scope on the guide, as well as give feedback on the draft guides as the evidence is presented to them. So they've attended online meetings, they've responded to surveys, they attended an in-person workshop in Ottawa last September, and we continue to consult with them until this entire project is completed. We have an inclusive recreation advisor on the consensus panel from the municipality of Regina, so that's been great that we've had Saskatchewan representation. And so then I wanted to show you basically where we started. So this is a lot of information on the slide, but you'll see in table 1, 8 areas of promising and best practices. And there's themes, there's 8 themes: accessibility in the built environment, inclusive programming, inclusive workplace culture and management, staff training and education, communication, partnerships with knowledge users, financial support, and then evaluation and feedback. So basically what we did was we conducted a rapid review of existing resources, knowing that there's already really great resources out there. The steering committee, so that's ALACD and CDPP, aim to collect existing resources and analyze the data to find the most significant areas of promising and best practices. So we conducted a rapid review, finding 31 resources using a Google search and key Google search terms. And then from there, documents were read and analyzed by a team of 2 researchers to look for patterns and insights. So from there, the insights and the themes that came out were the 8 areas of best practice. And the reason why I'm telling you that is just so you have some understanding of where we started and where we're ending with the municipal guide. So other evidence building that we participated in was we ran focus groups. We ran focus groups in 2024, and we ran additional focus groups in May 2025. So that has been a way to speak directly to caregivers, people experiencing disability, as well as municipal recreation staff to have a better understanding of how they view inclusive behaviors and actions within their municipality. We've also conducted rapid literature reviews. We've conducted 3 in 2024, and we're conducting 2 more currently. We're about to finish those up. So that evidence was presented to our consensus panel, and they guided us to see what they thought should stay in the guide, what should be added to, modified, and so forth. So the results, we were able to soft launch the first 3 areas of practice in May of 2025. So that's really exciting. And I don't know if it was added in the group yet. Jordan, thank you so much. But you can actually go to our website right now if you want to be watching the webinar and check out the website link. But that is where we soft launched the first 3 areas of practice. And what you'll see on there is the areas of practice of workplace culture, inclusive programming, and accessibility in the built environment. While we've soft launched those, the additional 5 will be coming later this fall. So these areas of practice include on the website how-to strategies, so very specific actions that a municipal rec leader could take to uh, make their programming, their facilities, or their human resource practices more inclusive. So that includes these paths to implementation. There's also ideas on how to bring it to decision makers, which was a key point that our consensus panel felt that we really needed to focus on, because oftentimes that's kind of the last obstacle to make real systemic change. And then the really neat thing that I encourage you to look at is we have some success stories. And so some of those success stories highlight municipalities across the country and that are already doing great work that represent some of these best practice areas. And it kind of brings the guide to life in a way so that you can actually think about, oh, what could we be doing in our municipality or our organization? And so I'm just saying that I would love to have some more representation from Saskatchewan. So if you are working with a municipality or have a contact in one, feel free to reach out to me at a later time, and we would love to interview them and highlight them in the guide for the future. So that's just the screenshot of our website and the three best practice areas. And we have it in French and English. So a quick snapshot. So like I said, in at the Sparks conference in October, our ALACD's plan is to get really deep into the guide so that we can start training people how to use it. So you walk away from a session going, okay, I really know 10 different things that I can do in my municipality to make it more inclusive for persons with disabilities. Today, I'm just going to give you an overview of some of the content. This document also that I have up on the slide is accessible in PDF format on our website in French and English. So it's a tool that you can download and you can share if you would like to. So this is just a quick overview of our best practice area accessibility in the built environment. So I'm just going to read the definition here. So we came up with through our environmental scan that accessibility in the built environment involves designing physical spaces and structures with considerations for individuals with different experiences of disability. It focuses on how municipal recreation departments can go beyond provincial legislation requirements and expectations. Ensuring accessibility in the built environment, whether through accessibility audits or participating in advisory committees, can be challenging and often requires collaboration with other departments. Still, the Recreation Department is at the heart of the community engagement and program delivery, making your input vital in shaping spaces that are not only accessible but welcoming to all. So that last point was around the fact that our consensus panel shared that as recreation leaders, sometimes they're not the ones making the decisions around what gets funded in terms of infrastructure and facilities and such. And so that point, we had a really lengthy conversation on how recreation leaders can be leaders within their broader municipality. Some of the how-to strategies, and like I said, this is just a snapshot. There's significant amount more in the guide, and you'll see that on the website. But some of them include obtaining support from senior leaders and management in municipalities is important to assist with budget approval. Engage different user groups, such as persons with disabilities and caregivers, as early as possible in the design process. Another one would be during the engagement process, use locations that offer features and amenities that improve access. So consider factors such as public transit, accessible parking, and the appropriate time of day. Meaning, if you're going to engage with people with lived experience and persons with disabilities, and you want them to come in person, you really need to think about that from the beginning of the engagement process. And another one is invest in an accessibility advisory committee, which can take different forms depending on the size of your municipality. In inclusive workplace culture and management, the definition is that it involves establishing a framework within organizations that prioritize disability inclusion, from leadership support to human resource practices. So the reason why this one came up in that initial rapid scan was was around, does your organization or your municipality have a mission and vision? Is it embedded? Is the idea of inclusion for persons with disabilities embedded in your culture? And more broadly than just your recreation department. And so, again, our consensus panel realized, okay, rec leaders may not feel like they have such influence in their broader municipality if it's a larger one. But rec leaders do play a crucial role in shaping an inclusive workplace culture. They can start making changes, small changes in their departments. So this is where this agents of change came from, was from one of our consensus panel members that was really passionate about how recreation leaders can be agents of change and make changes in your department that can impact and have ripple effects on the rest of the municipality. So a quick overview of some of the how-to strategies is that you can recognize there are many ways of performing job tasks. You can develop a zero tolerance policy for any type of mistreatment, discrimination based on disability. You can create, and you should create, a mission that is socially conscious and clearly states support for recruiting and retaining employees and volunteers with disabilities. And another one would be to adhere to web content accessibility guidelines and make recruitment materials accessible. In the guide, so we have here referred to the CNIB for more guidance. We have a lot of links and we link to a lot of resources that are really great and useful throughout the guide. And then finally, our inclusive programming best practice. So this one involves designing and implementing programs that are inclusive for people with disabilities by ensuring full participation and promoting opportunities for full engagement. And inclusive programming focuses on the participant's experience, as well as information, products, services, and spaces that have the flexibility to accommodate each person's needs. So this is a big area of practice, and if you're looking at it on the website, you'll see that there's various areas. Some of the how-to strategies may include identifying an inclusive recreation champion, hiring instructors with certification, ensuring that participants can bring external supports and caregivers into programs for free. I particularly like that one, and especially the things that come up about caregivers. There's another one here that says offer facility tours to participants and or caregivers prior to the program. I think that's a really considerate thing to do for folks. And so I also wanted to expand a little bit on inclusive programming. So a couple more things that the guide talks about in under this best practice area is the affordability of the program. So this could be in ways such as offering a flexible payment plan. Perhaps you can create a free trial. Often persons with disabilities will not know if they have the capacity or if this is the right experience for them. So free trials will allow them to try and go, okay, this is the right fit, or no, it's not. And then also subsidize activities, finding extra funding through grants, using a sliding fee scale, and then family discounts. Um, and then I just wanted to mention another thing that came up in the inclusive programming best area practice is transportation, which is very, very important and key to all of this working. So some of those things that came up in our research process was to schedule programs so they fit with what the community needs, such as making sure transportation is accessible. And you can create or find safe and comfortable places for picking up and dropping off participants. So that would be kind of paying attention to how your facility is built, the type of infrastructure, sidewalks and such, so that folks can be picked up and it can be safe and comfortable. And if possible, arrange for accessible transportation for participants. This could mean setting up carpool services, using accessible buses, or offering a transportation subsidy. And then you can make sure participants can bring their adapted recreation equipment with them when using public or special transportation. So that is, again, just an overview of some of the best practices. I think you might notice that we went deep to the point where we have a number of best practice areas, but there's even further direction that you can go as how to like the path for implementation. And so this is a living document for ALACD. We plan to continue to engage with the sector and continue to add to this resource as the years go on. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was that the guide actually can be used in many ways. So obviously, it's a great educational tool. There's a lot of details in there, and it can be a list of ideas for inclusion for a recreation manager. It can be used in staff training. I've trained staff before, and I think this would be very useful to do a module. If you have camp counselors coming in, you're training them at the end of June. So this week you bring them in and you do a module that's based on the municipal guide, I think would be very, very useful. It can also be an accountability checklist. As a director of recreation, you can look through it and kind of circle the things that you know that you're already doing, the things that you want to be doing, and you can kind of make a plan based on that. And then obviously it can be used as an awareness and advocacy tool for persons with disabilities and the broader community. When I mentioned about the municipal planning, I think that is something that ALACD is really focused on in terms of when we're developing our training and education around the guide is we're going to train, and our goal is to train municipal recreation folks to use this guide to develop a plan that is a disability inclusion plan. So something that is either integrated in their broader strategic plan or is just a separate plan. And we think that if that plan is approved by council, that could be a good way for this to lead to some more long-term change on how people with disabilities are included in recreation. So the way forward. Well, we are developing the remaining areas of practice currently, and we're going to complete the final guide. The goal is to officially launch the 8 best practice areas in the late fall of 2025. At that time, we are going to provide accessible PDFs for each best practice area in French and English. So they'll be like individual modules. And then we will update our website. So all 8 will be on there in French and English. We will also share these resources and do a press release with the provincial and territorial recreation leaders that are helping us with the project. And they have a municipal membership that they can share it with. And we will also provide information on future training and webinars such as the one we're doing today. We are going to host more in the future. We also are beginning to implement our communication and engagement strategy, and the goal for this is to increase the uptake of the guide. So we don't want this resource to just sit on a shelf. As we know, that happens a lot. There's a lot of great work that's being done. And our goal at ALACD is to actually see long-term systemic change. So we see this as a 5 to 10 year project and a plan for ALACD to invest in. So for that reason, we've developed a pretty long communication and engagement strategy that we will begin to implement later this year. So some of those things that we are going to do are webinars like this one. We are going to be attending conferences and presenting on the guide, and that's a great way to engage with municipal recreation leaders. We will have a social media presence, and we already have begun to have one. The one thing that we're looking at doing is developing a regional animator program where we have someone in every region of the country that is trained on using the guide to help municipalities develop a disability inclusion plan. And then depending on the sector's desire for it, we are looking at a potential certification. We know there's a lot of great certifications out there. We think that the guide, there's a lot of new information in our municipal guide. And so we're going to kind of get a sense of what the sector wants and if there's room for another certification. And then I was just going to ask you folks if you see if there's any other way that you see this resource being used by yourselves or your colleagues. Feel free to unmute or you can put it in the chat. And no problem if you don't have any. So the next thing I wanted to ask was, and again, you can unmute or you can write in the chat. What are some of the barriers that you face as a recreation professional to implement some of the practices that I included in this presentation? And then the other question that I have for you is what would motivate you or influence you to use this guide in your work? So feel free to unmute or you could add something to the chat. And no problem. I'll give it another 15 seconds and then we can move on. Okay, so yeah, thank you, Dana. You said I would start with using it as an accountability or audit tool. Okay, so what do you think about, would you want the guide to have some sort of checklist resource? How would you just go through the guide the way it's presented on the website, maybe in the PDF, and just kind of circle the things and go, yeah, yeah. Or would you use a tool if we developed a checklist, an audit checklist to go with it? You can respond in the chat if you feel like it. And then Kelly, I feel like budget constraints would be a large part of the barriers. Yes. So the one thing that we've done is in the financial support best practice area, which will be available later this fall. So we're working on it right now. But that area is actually looking at how to uh, be persuasive with council to support disability inclusion. So that we thought about what is that area of practice? What is the biggest barrier for people? And like you said, Kelly, it's these budget constraints. So what we've done is focus that area of practice on basically influencing decision makers. And then you said, especially when discussing with facilities or the town on what is necessary to be done to create better accessibility. Yeah, exactly. And so there's lots of really great arguments that can be made as economic, health. And so what we've done is we've written out the guide in that way, or the best practice area. And we hope that will give municipal recreation leaders some tools to go into council or speak to decision makers so that decision makers will feel that it's worthy of being funded. And then Dana, I would use a specific audit checklist tool. Okay, I find audits that clearly define where we are falling short and how we could do better, helpful when talking to decision makers. Okay, that's great feedback. I really appreciate that. We've been considering it, but I will bring that back to the steering committee and consensus panel that we received that feedback from you today. Appreciate it. And then I want to come back, unless you can continue to add in the chat, but the one thing I wanted to come back to is if you have a great, if you know someone or you have been part of a project that is a bit of a success story and has worked to include people with disabilities in programming, or it could be even an infrastructure project, feel free to share it right now. I think we would love to hear something that, resonates and maybe even inspires. And then again, reach out to me because we would love to highlight that success story in our guide. I'm just looking at the chat again from Dana. Built environment is a challenge. Yes, aging facilities that didn't consider accessibility, but even our newest facility has shortcomings. Yeah, exactly. No, you're right. It's such a barrier. And so that's a big one because the financial constraint there is pretty massive. Um, and have you found any ways around that? Um, or is it being pretty challenging? Yes, Aileen.
Sorry, I can chime in on a success story that we had in the district. So, as community consultants, we kind of work regionally, and we brought in Saskatchewan Wheelchair Association to do some Learn To sessions at one of our schools. And following that, this young gal, there's only one girl. It was like really, really hard to find somebody in a wheelchair living in rural Saskatchewan because accessibility is such a problem that they do tend to migrate to the bigger centers. But following that workshop, they were able to get her a sit ski so she can now participate in outdoor activities. And then we worked with them to get a grant for some accessibility mats. So now she can go to the playground and she can get to like
Amazing.
all these great spaces. So
That's
yeah, I
great.
just think, and like funding is such a huge thing because small towns like don't have the money for it. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and has anything come from that project or that small that you're aware of?
Mainly just yeah, that like the sport community in Saskatchewan, like through Sask Wheelchair, they were like super helpful and yeah, got
Yeah,
her that sit ski and are working. I think they might be working on some sort of bicycle as well, but I haven't
great.
really reached back out. But yeah, it was really hard like initially to find those. And I know kind of disabilities and different abilities can come in all different shapes and
Right,
sizes, but specifically with that wheelchair option, it was really, really tricky to find those rural solutions because there isn't that opportunity. So they leave, which is kind of sad.
it is. Yeah. No, that's really great to hear. Anyone else would like to share? Oh, there's a connection there, Kelly. If you, Aileen, if you look at the chat, Kelly would like to connect, and that was a point I was going to make. Is just one of our areas of practice that's coming out in the fall will be on partnerships, and I think that's pretty key point, Aileen, as to what you said is that it requires these relationships with other groups in the area, and I think that's probably how that came to be was working with the other groups. So we will be presenting that area of practice and hopefully there will be some useful stuff in there. Speaking of partnerships and relationships that we've connected with. So on the screen, you'll see Jouet, which is basically Jouet is an app that is developed to connect children and youth with disabilities to leisure and recreation. And we've had the great experience at ALACD to work with the founders and creators of this app at McGill University. And actually, Keiko Shikako is on our consensus panel. So this is an app that I was really curious if anyone had heard of it. There is for basically, say you're in Saskatchewan, you're in one of the smaller communities, one of the larger communities, you can pull up this app. Maybe you're a parent, a caregiver, and you pull it up and you can seek out activities in the area that are inclusive to persons with disabilities. The other cool thing is that if you are hosting something or you come across something, you can put it in. You can request to have it added to the app. And so we were really excited to just share that they are looking for knowledge brokers across the country and in particular looking for people in Saskatchewan. So I really wanted to get in front of all of you and if you're interested in this project and they're meeting monthly and this is just the goal is just to make sure that people and families know that this app exists so that they can use it and it's completely free and inclusive and accessible. And I'm just gonna look. Oh, it looks like you two are having a conversation. That's great. Okay, well that's it for me today. And obviously, if there's questions, feel free to ask, and I'll leave the floor to you, Jordan.
Perfect. Well, again, if there's some questions, you guys can still drop them in the chat. Thank you so much, Taryn and ALACD, for the work you're doing on this tool and developing it. Very excited to see the launch in the fall, and for us in particular, excited to see it at Sparks in October here in Regina.
Yeah.
So hope everybody on the call has a chance to register for that conference when it becomes available here in July. And I'm really excited to see how you can help municipalities and community leaders really develop this really key need. So thank you so much for joining us, everybody that was here live. When you log off, there's a really quick survey. It should take less than 30 seconds. We would appreciate your feedback to continue providing good webinars and good learning sessions for everybody. Really appreciate you taking the time with us during your lunch hour, and hope you have a great rest of your day and enjoy the rest of Recreation Professionals Week.